Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Shoot the Shit, the podcast where I interview men because I want men to talk. Today I'm joined by a good friend and a good friend of my partner, Mustafa. So thank you very much for being with us today. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Good, good. Yes, I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. So, question one of the podcast is usually I like to throw out as quite a biggie. So, what makes Mustafa a man?
Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay, we're getting straight into it. It's a very, very good question. Funnily enough, I've never actually thought about it. Um, I guess my outward appearance appears to be a man. I have the genes and the chromosomes to be a man, but in terms of sort of behaving and acting like a man. I feel like I haven't sort of reached that. So what makes me a man? I guess I would say um, I guess the societal views of me. But I mean I know I'm a man, but I just hmm. This can't be the podcast where I find out that I'm actually non-binary. But very, very good question. I think I need to delve into that. Hmm.
Yeah, I like to throw it in there straight away. Literally everyone's response is the same. Is like, "Oh shit, we started,"
Yeah,
which is good. But yeah, I think the reason that I asked that question is that it needs to be subjective. I think that's really important. You actually touched on some really nice points there, which was like society's view, this, and this. So, what I'm
yeah,
hoping from this and what I'm hoping to glean from this is in the future, when someone asks you that question, you can just list your traits and you can just list,
right.
I am me, and this is what makes me a man. And
Yeah,
it's not really looking at that societal side of things. And I've
right,
literally
right,
had
right.
the same response from everyone is like
Yeah,
been almost like this scratch card of like what is a man, and it's like
yeah,
they've tried to shoehorn themselves into those responses, and
yeah,
then we have a good chat, and there's a lot that sort of gets unearthed from that. And to be honest with you, I stupidly don't ask the question at the end, and I think I should
yeah.
start doing that as well.
No, no, it's a great question to sort of start with because then it gets you thinking like, what are the boxes that I tick as a man and my sort of everyday duties that I do that makes me a man. And the funny thing is, it's not like I wake up and then go, sort of I shall be a man today, or it's something that I've never really thought about actually. It's quite a yeah. It really gets you going.
Yeah,
I have to research it more now.
get the cogs going. So
Yeah,
let's maybe start with a little bit of an easier sort of question on that front. Give us a little bit of an intro, sort of who is Mustafa, what do you do, and why you were so keen to sort of do this podcast with me.
my name is Mustafa. I am currently 27 years old. I have been super interested in mental health. I did a degree in psychology, and then I went into fashion, funnily enough. So mental health has always been sort of something that I've I guess looked up to and really wanted to research more. And there's a funny saying that everyone who goes into psychology is actually a little bit messed up themselves and they're trying to find the answers. But I mean, I'm very sort of grateful that I did, and right now, what I do in the company that I work for, so I work for fashion, so I work for Dior. I actually recently became their mental health ambassador. To really get things going. But yeah, I guess that's a little bit about me.
Lovely. So there's going to be a lot to unearth. Hopefully you don't sort of psycho analyze too much, but
Yeah,
because yeah, no, that's we're trying to get the real you in this. So
yeah,
um, let's sort of go. as far back as you would sort of like to go back on your sort of life journey, like sort of when
Hmm.
societal pressures has been a big talking point for me. So maybe where that first sort of societal pressure sort of came in into your sort of your life and when it became a prevalent part.
Well, growing up as a non-conventional man, there's been a lot of sort of digging and searching in the sense of who I am, and that's why your first question kind of threw me off a little bit, which is funny enough. I'm still digging and searching. Um, well, I guess, as a kid, being a little bit confused about my gender, sorry, not my gender, my sexuality, you sort of are not taught in schools about, you know, um, what you are and how you can find that. And growing up as a sort of um, slightly chubby, um, gay, and also I had braces, the trifecta of bullying. I was sort of pressured into a lot of questions that I had to answer as a child, which I know I make it sound like it's the worst thing, but I'm very thankful for those experiences because they've made me who I am now, and without all of that tough societal bullying, I don't think I would have had the resilience that I have now. Um, and I'm still, still at age 27. I'm still learning and I'm still developing myself. And I'm still coming across parts of myself which makes me question things. Um, so I guess that's a little bit of my background. So then again, I went into psychology thinking, maybe this degree will help me find the answers to a lot of things. And again, I'm very grateful that I did that because I've learned a lot of interesting facts about men's mental health or my mental health. And again, it's equipped me with how to deal with society. And I guess, yeah, that's a little bit about my small background.
Yeah, cool. So you touched on a quite an interesting point there, which is what school was like, I guess, in the sense of like trying to figure out who you are. I mean, as
Yeah.
any child, no matter what your journey is, there's always an element of trying to find out who you are. Do you think that that's now sort of a an easier journey for someone to go into, or do you think that potentially there's more pitfalls around sort of? I guess for me, it's sort of like we sort of went to school at quite similar time. I'm 30, you're 27, so sort of so
Hmm.
like knowing gay people or bisexual people, it was still like quite a rarity, and I have people that I
Yeah.
went to school with that didn't come out until they finished school. It was almost like a case
Yeah.
of I've finished school, all that pressure's gone. I'm more
Hmm.
comfortable now, and I'm able to come out as gay. But they
Yeah.
would obviously didn't feel like they were comfortable to do that at school now. Do you feel that that's easier to do now, or do you feel like it's almost like too much sort of influence is put onto people, and it's almost creates a confusion on all
Yeah.
these options?
I think I've been a little bit torn because when I was at school, again, like you said, I was very sort of closeted and hidden, and I didn't want anyone to find out. And like you said, as soon as I finished sixth form, as soon as I went to uni, and I was like, okay, fine, I'm 100% gay. I have nothing tying me back anymore. I'm meeting new people. But being in that sort of high school area and being gay, it was so difficult in the sense that you had all this pressure to hide. But again, it taught me a lot of life skills, in the sense of like, I used to, my tactic in high school was to be with the popular girls, so they would sort of protect me. And then from then, I've just learned to always sort of surround myself with women So I guess that's done from that. But to answer your question, is it easier? I think there's just a lot more sort of things that you're exposed to nowadays. When I was in high school, I had no idea about sort of like, like I was saying, like non-binary and stuff, and all of this and this. I just thought it was just black and white. It was just gay, straight. I didn't even know that bisexuality existed. So nowadays, I guess you're more exposed to a lot of different things, which is an amazing thing because you can, I guess, steer towards what you feel like you are, and you are more sort of open to exploring those areas and finding out more about yourself. Whereas the resources that I had in high school um, were so limited, and I was quite scared to type things into Google too because I was scared someone's going to find out. So right now you've got like Instagram, you've got TikTok, you've got everything that you're sort of these things come to you, whereas I had to do the digging, I had to do the searching, I had to come to terms with myself, and this all came from virtually zero resources. So
Yeah.
I think nowadays I would say I hope it's easier. I think it's a little bit more accepting. I feel like I see a lot more stories of kids coming out in high school and kids coming out at like, very, very young ages, which, I would have loved to have done if that meant that, I would not be, bullied for that. But I think I would have to say it's a little bit more easier to sort of be who you are in nowadays. If I was to redo high school, with all the resources that I've come across and logged in, I think it would have been a much smoother sort of transition into finding out who you are now, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's a it's an interesting debate really because you
Mm.
have so many, like you say, so many resources and you have a lot more understanding, I think.
And then you're also sort of spoiled for choice at one point, like, which is like, you know what I mean? Like all of these things come because can you imagine being sort of, well, I can't imagine myself being young in high school and having all of these, everything, like all of these things bombarding you and telling you, oh, you could be this, you could be this, and you could be that, which is amazing because those those guys didn't know that these existed. I didn't know this existed, but again, you were just spoiled for choice. You're just like, which one do I sort of steer towards? And if I feel like this, am I this? Or if I feel a little bit like that, whereas, yeah, I don't know. That's I guess I guess it should be easier.
Yeah, I think you sort of get both sides of the coin. So like that bullying mentality that you sort of feared, that's
Mm.
almost like, well, it's so in mainstream culture that I can observe all of this anyway. So when someone
Yeah,
is different in inverted commas as it would have been perceived just a few short years ago, is not necessarily seen as different anymore. You might
yeah,
be, uh, it might not be seen as, yeah, it's not seen as different. It might not be seen as a bullying target. There might be other things that kids bully on now
yeah,
compared to sort of those sort of things. I think the power of social media has been a really big thing for, like you say, people being able to explore different people, even from sexuality all the way through to like, even if you were the
yeah,
weird nerdy kid that was like mad into Warhammer or something along those lines, like you might have
mm.
been one of 300 in that school. I know I was, and but with online and that sort of thing, you can sort of go into those communities and you can spend your after schools with watching people paint Warhammer or someone talking openly about exploring
Yeah.
sexuality. So it's a lot easier to to get that information, like you said. But then there's the other side of it where it's almost like that pressure of like, do I have to make a decision now? Is the
Yeah.
am I bisexual? Am I gay? Am I non-binary? Like, there's a lot of other sort of narrative around it, and it's almost that. Yeah, that's sort of my viewpoint on it.
And I also think it's much more safer to have those resources. Like, I don't know, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to go in these stupid little chat rooms, and it's like because I had no one to sort of discuss this with or talk to, um, and I'm thinking back now. I'm thinking like, oh my God, what if I actually met someone up on that chat room and I would have been like kidnapped or something like this? Now you can just literally um, it's served you on a platter, all these great resources. But yeah, it's a little bit more safer, and it's a little bit more sort of freedom of choice in a sense. But I guess I mean I would have been I would have been very happy to go into high school nowadays than like 20 years ago. Well, around like 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah. So what what made you make that decision? So I didn't actually know that you didn't come out until after school, after sixth form, and sort
Yeah.
of that moving on. So that 16, 15 to 18 is that sort of like sexual phase of school where you're trying to get girlfriends or boyfriends if you're
Yeah.
um, sort of going like that in that direction. What did that feel like when? Because I imagine at that point you were pretty 85, 90% sure that it was this was who you were. So what did
Yeah.
that feel like in that small time period? I know it's a short time period, but sort of not being able to be yourself.
So, you mean from like high school to like up until when I left high school? What was it like?
Well, that's sort of like so you've got your first bit of high school where it's like just high school, but like where it's almost like there's
Yeah.
that sexuality that you're exploring with your peers. It's like where you're sort of exploring that side of things. What was that like as a time period for you?
I don't know. I would say again, it was very sort of dark. I didn't have anyone to speak to. I didn't know what really gay was, and I was questioning a lot of things. I fell into this rabbit hole of like seclusion and I just always wanted to be alone. I was so afraid of being different from everyone. You know, day in, day out, you would sort of get bullied for like the smallest things of whether it be how I walk and all this. So again, I repressed it. I pushed everything back, and I just didn't want to deal with it. I just had no one who I could speak my truth to. So I would turn to like stupid things like chat rooms, sort of secretly Googling things when no one was around. But then as soon as I hit that sort of again 15, 16 mark, I started to explore that a little bit more and be like, okay, fine. Now the hormones are surging, so let's delve deep into this. So I started researching things. I started talking to people a little bit more. And then, but again, at the same time, I hadn't told anyone. It was just genuinely just me. Um, but I was still trying to find things because I was so depressed. Um, I just felt secluded from everybody. Everyone was out, like, with their girlfriends and stuff, and everyone kept asking me who I fancied, and I had to lie. It just felt like my existence at that time was genuinely a lie. It sounds quite depressing, but it was just um, it was not something that I sort of think back at it now. It's something again, even in my adulthood, I've quite repressed those years
Yeah.
because it's just not something that I want to relive and bring out. But again, it really genuinely shaped me to be um, someone who's an advocate for these things now. I would have loved to have had someone like me now meet me at that age, just to be like, everything's gonna be fine. Because like I don't know if you remember those campaigns that we used to have that was like, it gets better and stuff and all this, and I never used to believe it because I just thought how could it? Like, if I didn't see a foreseeable future of myself where I'm sort of happy, how could it get better? So I never believed this thing. And then once I left sixth form, I was like, you know what? F it. I have no ties to high school anymore. I'm going to completely like change myself. I can't be in this sort of rut and just sort of in this secluded sort of part of my life where I just have to worry about this anymore. So as soon as I entered university, I was like, "Hi, Mustafa, gay." Like I was just immediately, um, because there was just something that was inside of me at that time where it was just really trying to come out and um and really sort of, you know, be out in the open, but I was really repressing it in, and I felt so free after that. It was I don't know how to describe it to you. It was this massive weight off my chest that I could just like now breathe and actually talk about things and you know and learn all these things. I had to learn, you know, a lot about like gay feelings and all of this at such an, you know, such a mature age where I should have been learning about this when I was a kid. When we had sex ed, there was no such thing as like, you know, gay sex ed and stuff. And the only way I could teach myself at that time, because I was a kid, I didn't know any better. So I would watch, you know, those fun sites, which is not the best way to learn about, you know,
No.
how to practice it safely and you know and how to behave and all this. So I just think a lot of my life at that time had just been put on hold and it was on pause um and then once I managed to sort of break free from it, my God, now I live my truth every single day. It's quite amazing actually. It was like a complete 180. Um it was just such a dark, yeah, such a dark period.
Yeah, I like to try and touch on as much as we can
Yeah, yeah,
in
of
these. I
course.
don't want to try and bring up too many bad memories, but I hope that it
Oh
sort of,
no, no, no! Don't worry about it at all.
yeah,
I'm honest to God hoping that someone sees my story and whoever's felt the same way as me back then just knows that finally there's someone out there who's made it out of it, which I'm more than happy to touch on like anything like that. I want someone sort of old me to see new me now. So if it helps someone, I'm totally up for sharing everything.
yeah, that's literally the whole goal of this. If it helps one person, it's done its job. So that's essentially the whole thing. So I imagine it's almost like you had a dirty little secret that shouldn't have been a dirty little secret. It was just this, and it must have just, I genuinely can't imagine it. Obviously, I've held secrets back, but like never
Yeah,
to something that's my
to that
actual
extent.
inner personality that I just want to
Mm.
let out and I want to shout, um, from that point of view. So once you'd sort of open the door, so to speak, and you were, um, moving forward with your life, you obviously talk about there still wasn't that resource. That was quite an interesting thing you sort of mentioned. You sort of said like you still had to look at naughty videos, and that was like
Yeah.
your way of learning. Which if you were to look at now and the feedback on that, like there's a big push on young men and how they've been seen to treat, their partners based on,
Yeah.
watching these sort of things. So the fact that that
Hmm.
was your outlet is not exactly like you say. There was no education. It was very much
Yeah.
the polar opposite of that. So you're like you say, you're almost stagnated in your growth because you're almost playing catch up. So how was, um, uni in that sense? You're obviously, studying a new subject, something that's actually really closely linked to this. Again,
Yeah.
just to answer those questions, like to try and answer those questions a little bit more. So, what was uni like for you? Because I imagine it was quite a thrilling experience in that sense.
It was honestly great as soon as I sort of you know let it out and accepted myself. Everything had just sort of turned. I had an amazing experience. I had a great time. I wasn't lying to anyone. I was actually being appreciated for who I was, which is such a weird feeling to sort of have, where you come from a place where you are sort of sort of bullied in that sense, and you're always taught to behave in a certain way. But at uni, I completely expressed myself in the sense of how I wanted to. I walked how I wanted to. I spoke how I wanted to. I dressed the way that I wanted to. It was just such a liberating sort of experience to have. And when you compare it, sort of high school me, I was just this repressed little kid who was just screaming to sort of come out. But uni was great. I finally managed to catch up to 10 years of lost education, but it was a quick little speed course on a lot of things. And I sort of became in tune with myself, and from then on I promised myself to sort of never hide who I was, or be ashamed. Um, uh, in high school, it made me, it knocked my confidence down so much, to a point where at uni I was having trouble actually approaching people, because I was always thinking, oh, what if they still cling on to their high school ideas, and they think it's bad, and it sort of hindered me a tiny bit. But as soon as we sort of progressed throughout the years, everyone sort of loved it. It was such, I don't know how to describe it. It was like literally stepping through a portal where you are, battered every day, to somewhere where it's appreciated, if not encouraged. I was having people coming up to me and saying like, oh, they love this, they love this, and in my head it wasn't sort of calculating properly, because I was like, but I was bullied for this. Why do you like it? It was a lot of weird, mixed, confusing feelings at first, and then once I found out that this is actually, um, me, and I shouldn't be sort of ashamed of it, it became an amazing sort of experience, and everything just became, it's gonna sound cheesy, but just easy. It just became like, I was like, it's like I was stuck on hard mode, and then finally it's just like, okay, like this is now life, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I think I touched on it in the last podcast as well. So uni for me was a big eye opener. I'm I'm naturally quite in myself. I'm not an extrovert by any stretch of the imagination, but at school that was magnified, and I I wouldn't, if 14-year-old me saw this, he'd be like, you're speaking to someone on the
yeah,
internet, and other people could, like, they'd be blown away, mainly
yeah,
with the technology. But no, I was very introverted, and uni allowed me to come out of that shell, and so ironically it felt a lot safer place to, like you say, not necessarily reinvent yourself, but to just explore more. Everyone's
yeah,
there enjoying the same experiences. And one thing that you sort of touched on there was like, well, what if they have this? You find out very quickly with university that if you don't get on with someone, you don't have to spend any time with them. Whereas in
yeah,
school, you're sort of like in this class of 30 kids, and it's like, I don't like Dan, he's a prick.
yeah.
um,
But that's the thing. But you have to sit next to fucking Dan, which is just, it's such an absurd, like, yeah, it's so interesting. It's such an absurd sort of thing to learn at that age, and be like, oh, if that person doesn't like me, I don't have to talk to them. That's weird. Um, but but again, I had to relearn a lot of things, and be like, okay, so uni is a little sort of a small course for actual real life. Like, hopefully, real world is going to be like uni, where you have sort of the freedom of choice to speak to who you want, and you naturally gravitate towards people who you like, and they like you and stuff. Whereas in high school, it was just you're clumped in this tiny little classroom together, where people who you don't really like, but you have to constantly keep seeing them, and that had such a toll on me back in the day. Whereas, like, coming out to uni, and realizing that, you know, life could actually be quite fun, was incredibly liberating. And after that, after going into the real world, I was like, okay, fine. If I passed uni, I can do anything. And then the real world was just the same. It was like you can be yourself and stay away from people who you don't want to be with. It was such a weird concept to learn and understand, especially as like a um as like a gay kid, where you're like, okay, but what if part of the world still doesn't accept you? Because they don't. But again, it's not like you run into these people in your social circles or the places that you hang or you go, but it's quite rare that you do. But yeah, that's a very interesting concept.
So let's sort of, I want to move on to your career and that side of things now. So just to sort of finish off this little topic, if you
Hmm.
could talk to a 14-year-old or younger, someone who's sort of in that age bracket that was in a similar situation to you, what would be your, not advice, what would be your opinion on that situation now and sort of then? So like how would you say it both times to sort of those sort of people?
It's uh, it's. I know I bashed it, but it genuinely does get better. It's such a cheesy and like over oversaturated sort of saying, but it it back then I didn't know that it made sense. But once you actually start sort of living life and start progressing through life, it genuinely does start to get better. Yes, it's shitty now, and yes, you're gonna have not the best time now, but you can't focus on that. You just have to sort of live through it, and find people who love and support you for who you are, and stick by them. Stop. I know you are sort of encased in a classroom with people who you might not particularly like, but you can also find people who accept you and are willing to love you and speak to them um, and gain advice. And I wish I knew as a kid that there were these sort of LGBT youth centers, which I had no idea existed. I actually, once I found out existed, I started volunteering for them and started to spread the word because I was like, I wish I did, find communities that accept you and love you, and they're the ones that are going to make that horrid journey that you're at the moment just slightly better, just to hold off until you can go into real life, because real life is not, it's not high school. For some people it's amazing, but for me it wasn't great. But you know, I guess just find shelter in love.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. No, you couldn't have said it better myself. I one of the things I wanted to just quickly pick up on there was that you said that you're doing it to death, but it only gets better.
Yeah,
Is quite apt in this whole sphere. I think for you that's obviously a suppression that obviously weighs on you, that forces you into depression, and that's your
yeah,
cause of mental health. No matter what your cause is, as long as you can find a way to address it, where like you say, it's finding those solutions that allow you to sort of blossom out of this, it instantly gets better. It's
yeah.
crazy. It's crazy to think. Like I've touched on this briefly, but my journey with mental health probably started 3 or 4 months ago, in the sense that
Hmm.
I literally looked myself in the mirror, and that man was not someone I wanted to be. That was not
Hmm.
me at all. I was a shell of a man. I was horrible to be around. Like you wouldn't want to be with me. But like
Right.
from then until now, I'm talking like a 12-week period. I've changed a few little things, and I'm not actually glowing. That's a lie, but I do feel a million times better, and
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near the top. I'm nowhere near sorted. I think that's something that I've also wanted to touch on with this, is that mental health is exactly that. It's your health. It needs to be constantly
Yeah.
looked after. But yeah, I'm in a completely different place. I just
That's
I can
amazing.
I can just imagine the euphoria of that weight coming off, and it's like
Yeah.
and then sort of the realization of, oh shit, I've got actual shit to do.
Yeah, it's mostly about like sort of refocusing and finding those little hinders um which bother you, which sort of stop you from waking up happy and honestly taking action and charge of that. When I was young, again, a lot of things were not in my control, but what was in my control was my friendship group and my community. And I feel like if I didn't have that, I didn't even know what I would be now. But yeah, you're right. I think it's just taking a look in your mind and finding out sort of what needs to be looked after, what needs to be cherished, what needs to be healed, what you have to sort of deal with, and then doing a deep cleanse.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to segue this into sort of your next stage of your life by talking about the time that we actually met, which was at my partner's flat. We
Yes.
You came round and you brought a board game with you, which for the life of me I cannot remember what I
Oh
bought.
my God, I have it here. You are gonna be. Can you believe I actually have it
this
here?
this
It's
isn't
that's so crazy. And the funny thing is, if I do open it, I'm sure I can find your thing on here. That is insane. I'm so glad you mentioned it. Yep, here it is. Look. Oh, this is so weird. Hold on.
uh,
God, this is Look, do you remember when we did the first impressions of each other? And I put for Lewis, I put chill, kind, sweet boy.
I mean, slightly slightly not wrong. Um, yeah, what's the game called? Sorry, I can't remember it.
So it's called We're Not Really Strangers.
We're not really
It's
strangers. That's it.
which is this YouTube, YouTube, this Instagram page that I followed, who she made this really intense game where you really get to know each other on different sort of levels. And I remember we played that. Yeah, that's hilarious. And I still keep it here, and I sort of play it with some people, and it's just it really it really makes them open up a little bit more because the questions are sort of worded in a way in which to sort of um, answer them truthfully and deeply, and it really touches on some things that you really wouldn't talk about with strangers.
Yeah, definitely, and potentially not even with your own friends. It was
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, I'm a bit of an introvert. That wasn't my. It was good. It genuinely was good fun. Once I got into it,
Yeah.
it was really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But it was yeah, I just remember that there was at the end of it, it was like it felt like I'd known you for a very long period of time,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
though that was the first time that we'd actually met. So I wanted to mention it because like you've obviously popped back up now and stuff like that. I don't we've obviously pandemic and stuff, so we've not really
Yeah.
seen too much of each other. But it still feels like we've got that connection, which was great for me to know that game had done its job as well.
Yeah.
But that really showcases your character. I think the fact that I'm playing this game, so you're going to play it too. Um, Even though it's the first time that we'd met, and I
Yeah.
think from you explaining where you were as little Mustafa all the way up to then, I think that shows
Yeah.
exactly what you were trying to say in your sort
Yeah.
of statement, that it does get better and that you were like, "Hi, I'm Mustafa. I'm gay. This is the game we're like.
Yeah.
This is the game we're going to play." So yeah, that was sort of that. But um, I want to talk a little bit more about where. So you obviously finished university. Um, went into. You went straight into fashion. Is that correct?
So I finished university and I thought, let me take a gap year because I wanted to go into my master's, then I was going to do my doctorate. Because I was like, yep, psychology, this is what I want to do. Da, da, da. And then I was like, okay, let me take a gap year because that means if I do 1 year of master's and then years of PhD, I'm going to be in education for the rest of my life. So I might as well just, pursue something that I've always loved. But again, I was quite sort of bullied for liking. So I was like, okay, I've done uni. Let me go into fashion. So then I applied for fashion, and funnily enough, with no experience or anything at all, must have been my charms that I was let in, and then I got into this world of, you know, sort of, I mean, uni was kind of gay, whereas like fashion is like gay. So then it's like you go into you're sort of thrown into the deep end, and you meet a lot of super interesting people who've had like different sort of childhoods and everything like that, and you sort of learn from each other, and it was such an amazing environment to be in, which so now I'm in my fifth gap year. So I'm still sort of pursuing that, but it's again, I think it's because I was just so bullied for liking it, and it's such a feminine thing to like, and it was a passion that was not very respected, I guess. So I was just like, okay, I've done everything. Let me pursue this, and yeah, here I am, 5 years on.
5 years on, 5 years into your gap year. But this is the thing, like, I think I mentioned this to, I think it was in Dan's podcast. Not the same Dan that we both didn't like, just before I forget that, because
Prick.
he 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 didn't go to uni, and then we sort of talked about that, and it was like, and he chopped and changed his careers and sort of found his feet, and then I sort of went into the conversation about my mum and how she went to uni in her later life. I won't tell everyone how old she was when she went back to uni. She'll
Yeah.
slap me around the face. So it's like career isn't career anymore. It's sort of amalgamated into one. And I think if you go back and study and you do all of these other things, there's so many options available to you. There is no sort of like,
Yeah.
we won't call it a gap year. It's experience, it's life experience. You're
Hmm.
working and you're doing something that you enjoy, which I mean, for the majority of people, is a rarity. So you've
I, I I also think that sort of in the back of my head, everything that I've done so far has just been one big F you to sort of my high school days. I think everything that I've been sort of told not to do, I've just done because I was like, because I was so trapped in this terrible, terrible environment where now that I'm older and I get to have free choice and everything, I just wanted to just give them the big middle finger. So just to, I guess, prove something to myself and have that satisfaction. And funnily enough, it's worked. I feel great.
good. I'm glad that that's the case. You used quite an interesting choice of words when you first sort of said you said that they let you in, and I want to just sort of get an understanding. Like, fashion is super clicky. Like, if you're not wearing the
Oh my
right
God, yeah.
thing in the right, like, this is my horrendous attempt at fashion. So I please apologize. If you're not wearing the right thing in the right season, you are shunned and you're ostracized to um, wearing jumpers with odd color sleeves.
Mhm.
So what is that like from a day-to-day basis? I imagine that there's sort of this societal pressure again, but it's almost like clicky pressure. Is that there in this
Yeah.
role, or how are you finding that side of things?
There is a lot of clickiness, and as with most things, usually, I mean, the whole clickiness aspect is because it's filled with a lot of gays and females. So I guess you sort of stick together, and there's a lot of competition everywhere, and you do want to be, the one that's on the top, and in an environment where it's predominantly women and gays, you are going to have sort of, well, Mean Girls describes it better. They say that when you fight in girl world, everything is behind the scenes. It's never sort of up front like it is with guys. I mean, guys punch each other and then they hug each other, a second later. But yeah, there's a lot of quickiness, but I've stopped myself from becoming the bully. Sort of that Batman reference where it's like you live long enough to see yourself the villain or something. But there have been moments where I've fallen into it where um I didn't want to or didn't really realize that I was doing so. But then there was something in me that had that experience before. So I've, managed to get out of the hole and stuff and um, try not to be the thing that I hated most. Because again, I could not imagine myself looking myself in the mirror and seeing the faces, instead of my face, seeing the faces of my high school bullies in the mirror, which just would have really been quite awful. But yes, in every day, I try my best to sort of not fall into that. Whereas I do work in fashion, but then, like I said previously, I also volunteer for an LGBT charity. So it's just that balance to sort of ground yourself and humble yourself, and to always remember where you kind of came from. Um, because yeah, I couldn't think of making someone else feel what I felt years ago.
Yeah, I think there is that element to it, but I really want to caveat that because I don't want to feel like I'm having a go at fashion as that. Like every industry and every sort of profession has that sort of trying to get to the top. And the thing with fashion, and
Yeah,
especially high-end fashion, is it is hyper competitive. Like
yeah,
you're talking about the pinnacle of an area that is liked by a huge proportion of the world's population. Like those
yeah,
jobs and that career path is a very sought after career path. Not for
hmm
everyone, as is not trying to be a CEO of a FTSE 100 company, but at the end of
yeah,
the day, it is a hyper competitive industry, and there's always going to be an element of I'm gonna mess it up for this guy or this girl because I know I can get under their skin a little bit, and
yeah.
that's one less person for me to worry about. And that happens across all industries where it's hyper competitive as well. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah, of course. But like you said, well, like you said earlier, it's just with guys, it's like it's easier to sort of screw people over. Where it's like when it's like females and gays, it's everything's behind the scene. You'll never see it done in front of your face. You'll find out about it. Um, it's a lot of um it's just a lot of viciousness that sort of goes on. But as long as you know prevail from that and not fall into it, I think it's just like any other industry.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that from a day to day? Because you've obviously said that you don't want to do that side of it, but I imagine there must be an element of it coming your way.
As in, how do I deal with
So
the
like
clickiness
so
then?
so like the behind you say the behind the scenes stuff is happening and then you
Mm.
find out a bit later. Like how do you not allow that to ruin your day or like get you into a state of like depression? Like how do you not
I
allow that to
think
be
that's the thing. I think I used to really let it get to me on a personal level, and I always used to sort of take it home with me. And I used to always think that I needed to be liked by everyone there, and I needed to um, be this be this person that you were seeing all around you, and you had to be like the stereotypical bitchy gay to get to the top and stuff. And I used to really channel that and think about it at night and what was going to be my next move and all this. And again, that put me in this sort of slowly. and this slow depression spiral that I was just getting into my head all the time. But then one day I just stopped sort of caring about it, in a sense that I didn't let it, you know, I didn't let it hurt me in a personal level. And then afterwards, I've had a very smooth sailing sort of a career. So now I don't take anything that's being done or said outside home. I separate work from home, and yeah, it's just really not letting it control you in that sense. Yes, you want to get to the top and stuff, but there are other ways of doing so. You don't always have to stab someone in the back to rise up. But I've just learned how to manage my sort of um, manage my stress, manage my expectations in that sense a little bit better over the coming years. And again, like I said, I'm still learning at age 27, and all of these experiences that I've had have truly shaped me to be, you know, quite a resilient sort of type of guy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you want to be the tallest building, you don't have to tear everyone else down to be that. Just
Mm.
build the tallest building is a good analogy there. So let's sort of touch a little bit on this current role that you've sort of stepped into. So
Hmm.
again, this mental health is becoming forefront of a lot of businesses. It's starting to become quite prevalent. But again,
Yeah.
not to like keep having a dig, you would sort of expect it to be the last thing as a high end fashion, the same way that you wouldn't expect it on a high intensity sales floor. Like
Yeah.
there's industries that you're sort of there's still a very big taboo against sort of mental health. So
Mhm.
how did that role come about? And yeah,
Well, the role within itself was sort of emailed in the sense that, oh, hey, we have this mental health ambassador role. If anyone would like to, you know, put themselves forward, please do. And then we all had to, I put myself forward, and so did a few other people, and we all had to sort of vote, which again plays a sort of popularity card. And you know, it's a little bit not the best way to choose it. I personally think it should have been done in the sense of like, um, you know, you go up to, I guess, HR and give your case, and then they choose, as opposed to someone sort of electing you, because again, it's not about what your credentials are before. It's really a popularity contest. So I just explained to everyone, you know, I have a psychology degree. It's something that I've loved doing. So I guess if you elect me, I'll try my best to make everyone's mental health a little bit better here. And yeah, that's how it came about.
cool. And what does it look like? What is it? What's your sort of input with that?
Um, so the role itself is we we gather everyone's sort of requests when it comes to mental health, and we pitch it once a month to sort of this not a board meeting, but a meeting of all the mental health ambassadors from the different regions, and especially with the HR leader and someone who's been appointed part of the mental health team too. And then we try to figure out the best ways to communicate with our team and to help them to deal with the everyday pressures of work. Which again, as much as I love this role, I'm still working for a corporate which they don't really um, they don't really get mental health to that extent. Like again, they're quite constricted on what they can do. Whereas my ideas were like, you know, let's get an in-house therapist, and they were like, no, we don't have that much money. Which I work for $1 billion company, which is anyways. But you know, it's their idea of like mental health is like, let's put on a picnic, and it's just it's not like the best way of of dealing with this, but we are slowly starting to get a little bit better, in the sense that we have a lot more ideas coming up in the next coming year and all of this. We are just still governed by that corporate mindset at the moment, but um, but it's starting to. The good thing about the role is that it's a good exposure to the teams and stuff to let them know that this exists and you can talk to us and then you can put forward your ideas which can go through and so yeah, that's basically my roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, I think the thing with corporations is they try and do a blanket this fits all type things, whereas it is really more of a personal solution that needs to be done. I think one thing that's great that you mentioned is that you're one of many sort of advisors in that sense. You're not just taken one big role and sort of stuck them in head office. You're at least you're actually in the building with people and you can
Yeah,
have those communications one on one, which is a good step in the right direction. But like you say, it's probably nowhere near the level that it could be, and I think that's just
oh,
going to
for
be
sure.
a learning curve for businesses as a whole. I think it's not
Yeah,
just fashion that's at fault there.
that needs it. But it's good that sort of companies like this actually acknowledge the fact that mental health is a big um, something to showcase and to really take into consideration. I mean, I don't know many companies that have sort of these mental health ambassadors where their main purpose is to make your life easier. Um, so in that sense, it's a good starting point for getting things going.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the second podcast was with a good friend of mine, Harry, and he's in the Navy, and that was the last place that I would expect to find anything like that. And he was
Mm.
saying that it's been brought in and it's not a shunned word, so to speak. So you talked about your volunteering on that side of things as well. Is
Yeah.
there much of a contrast in that? Like, how do you see that side of the coin? What attracts you to that side of the space?
So for my volunteering that I sort of used to do a lot more often when I was at uni, but less now because of my time schedules, was with Mosaic LGBT Youth Network. And what they provide is they get the sort of lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans sort of workers or volunteers and have a space for young persons to come and see themselves and be a part of the community and have someone to speak to. Um, just because when you're at that age, you're figuring out a lot of things, and sexuality should not be the hardest thing that you have to figure out. So what they provided was a safe space of a diverse um, uh, individuals who experience different things, and we used to take them out to for Pride, and I actually marched with at Pride with them, and we used to bring guest speakers in, and all of that. It was just really um, what we call in our community like a chosen family, sort of that sense of community, something to really keep you going, something you can go and speak to, and if you have any issues, you've got a direct contact of someone who feels like you, which is amazing because again, I wish I had that when I was young, but it's that direct contact of advice and other things that we provided them.
Amazing. So what's next for Mustafa? What's the what's next?
It's a very, very, very good question. Again, I love how you like start with a banger and end with one too. It's again, it's something that I don't really think about. I'm in a very, very good sort of space in my life at the moment. Um, what I've learned right now is to really take every day as if it were a gift and really live and experience as much as I possibly can. Um, I don't really have sort of something that I'm striving towards at the moment. Of course, as with everyone, uh, in terms of career and wealth and all of this, my aspirations are always high. But in other sense, I guess, to just live every day with great gratitude and um, take in as many experiences as possible um, and just be better for myself and others.
Would you say that you're pretty much the majority of the time at peace? Like you're you're comfortable and you're happy and
I think so. I think looking around at every aspect of my life, I'm quite happy. If little Mustafa saw this, he would never have believed it. Um, um, I think, in terms of my emotional support, in terms of my career, in terms of my social life and everything like that, I'm pretty content. I think everything is what little Mustafa hoped it to be. This is very Miss Universe, but it's but yeah.
well, I mean, it's a great place to be, and I think you've touched on all the points that allow you to be there. It's not just a case of you being stationary, like you say. There's still movement, and
Yeah.
there's still drive, and there's still vision, and there's a lot of like little things that keep you in place and keep you in check and allow you
Mm.
to enjoy your life, which is one of the biggest takeaways that I would love people to get from this is like we are trying to create a place that's livable and that's enjoyable and that is fruitful. Like you see a lot of stuff on the internet where it's like you have to be here and you have to keep striving, you have to keep pushing
Yeah.
yourself to this absolute limit of a man and there's other pressures across um, everything that's out there. But it's just if we can find contentment and we can enjoy the moment and we can still have ambition and we can still move forward, I think that is an absolutely fantastic position to be in because you're going to be a lot happier. You're not resentful, and you're able to enjoy life, which is one of the one of the best things about it is that you get to enjoy it. So, Mustafa, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. I hope to see you soon in person. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. And what you're doing, it's absolutely amazing. I hope there shall be 500 more episodes, and I can't wait to tune in to
I
all
hope
500.
500 more, and you can come in now, Georgia.